Welcome to my 2021 college football season preview of the American Athletic Conference Take 2. I went through, I did this entire video, but I was looking after my kid at the time, my 5-month-old. Thought it'd be cool to have a little bit of a co-commentator there. Ended up she was a little bit too commentatory, had a little too many thoughts and opinions there to express, too close to nap time, so that didn't work out. Had to redo the video. So round 2 coming in here. This is part of my series that I'm doing. I'm reviewing every college football conference in the FBS, all 10 of them, plus the independent teams. This is the American Athletic Conference one, so it's part 3 of my series. I go through, every year I've gone through the Athlon Sports magazine, because I like their format, not because I like their commentary, but because I like their format. I've gone through the Athlon Sports magazine, and I have written down and previewed which of the teams I think are going to win each conference and what the records are going to be overall. And then at the end of the season, I've gone back in and I've looked it up, and every year, I've been doing this for about 4 years now, every year I've been at or better than Athlon Sports, usually better than Athlon Sports. So I figured, hey, this time, get it out. I figured I'd make it into a YouTube series, a little bit of something to watch while we wait for the college football season. It's under 3 weeks away now. I am pumped, cannot wait. It's just too long an off season. So let's get right into it then. All right, so first team, Cincinnati Bearcats here. So great season last year, of course, going in and playing Georgia with a narrow loss there in the Peach Bowl. And then season before that, 11-3. So Cincinnati has cemented themselves as one of those top-tier teams in the group of 5, and definitely one of the top-tier teams in the country, period, I think, when you start looking at top 30 teams overall. Cincinnati is definitely in the mix there. Outstanding job. Their head coach, they've somehow been able to manage to keep Luke Fickle. His heart isn't Fickle, even if his last name is. They've managed to keep a hold of him, even though he's had lots of Power 5 offers. Exciting to see a group of 5 coach like that sticking around and continue to develop a great team like Cincinnati. So returning Desmond Ridder, one of the best quarterbacks in the group of 5. Outstanding job last year. I don't necessarily think he's the best quarterback in the American Athletic Conference. I think Dylan Gabriel might have him edged out for that, but he's an outstanding quarterback. Definitely real close with Gabriel right there, and one of the best in the group of 5. Excited to see what he can come in and do. Athlon Sports is predicting 11-2, 7-1 overall. I'm going to say pretty much along. So that's they predict that they're also going to win the conference championship game. So 10-2, 7-1 regular season. I'm going to be right on board there. I think it's going to be 10-2. I think they're going to go 8-0 within their conference, not 7-1 like Athlon Sports is projecting here. I think they're going to win all their conference games. I think they're going to drop a non-conference game to Notre Dame. Now the other 3 non-conference games they have are Miami, Murray State, and Indiana. I think they'll definitely beat Miami, Ohio, and Murray State. Indiana, though, is a team that played much better last year than they have in the past. In the Big Ten there, of course, going last year, I think it was it 6-2? Yeah, so 6-2, 8-5 year before that. So a Big Ten team that's been kind of bottom tier of their conference for a while now, that's on the rise. This is one of the hardest college football seasons to predict. I greatly, because of the COVID season, the way it impacted the football season, some teams only played 4 games, like some of the Pac-12 teams. Some teams played 12. Some teams, even when they were scheduled for 10, only played 6 or 7. Some teams didn't play out of conference. The practice schedule was completely messed up. You had long bye week gaps that weren't originally planned due to games being canceled. All of that had major impacts on how each team played. So when you look at teams like Penn State, for example, that had a crappy year last year, you have to say, okay, was that because Penn State's just bad now, or because they had a bad year? And then you look at a team like Indiana that had a great year, went 6-2, and you go, okay, is that because Indiana's now on the rise, or is it because they took advantage of the COVID situation and just ended up on top? COVID definitely lowered the bar overall and brought some of those top-tier teams down to a more competitive level with some of the middle to bottom-tier teams in the conferences. Is that the case going with Indiana? I don't think it is. I think Indiana is definitely pushing up on the rise. They're not going to win their conference. Ohio State is going to win that conference for sure, and I'll go more in depth when I get to the Big Ten preview, but I think that Indiana's on the rise. This is a tough game, having to go with Cincinnati, having to go to Indiana, play in that Indiana stadium. Indiana's going to be motivated and dedicated. Cincinnati might even be overlooking this game a little bit, even though it's a Power 5 opponent, because they have Notre Dame the following week, which is the toughest game on their schedule. So I think Cincinnati's going to be vulnerable in this game. I think they're going to go in. I think Indiana's going to be motivated. I think they're going to get a win. They will not be overlooking Cincinnati. They might even have them circled on their schedule schedule. I think Indiana's going to grab that win. I think Cincinnati's probably the better team here, but I just think the way that's going to work out, home team advantage, all of that, Indiana's going to grab that win. I think they're going to play Notre Dame extremely tight, at least for the first 3 quarters, but I think Notre Dame pulls it out in the 4th there and gets that win. Overall, though, 10-2, 8-0 is what I'm projecting. Great season again for Cincinnati. Definitely going to be a front runner for that New Year's Six bowl bid. Make sure you stick around to the end of my video where I'm going to kind of look at how these teams were going to stack up in the conference, who I think is going to be winning the conference game. And then make sure you like and subscribe if you like this content. I'm going to be having a video coming out once I'm done with all my conference previews where I talk about the New Year's Six race and which teams I think are going to be in competition for that, as well as a preview of my projections for the playoffs. All right, East Carolina Pirates, 3-6 last season, 4-8 season before that. Continuing that downhill trend that they've had for a while going now. They've really kind of, and I don't even know if it's downhill trend because they've been pretty bad in this conference for a long time. Athlon Sports has them having a little bit of a better year, 5-7, 3-5. I don't think that's going to be the case. I think this is going to be another downward trend for them as well, or at least maintaining the status quo, which is already bottom of the conference. I think they're going to go 3-9, 2-6. I do think they might end up being better than that 3-9, so I'm projecting 3-9. However, East Carolina every year manages to either play a team tight and get in close for a win, if not losing. I mean, last year they lost to Tulsa by 4 points, which Tulsa was a really good team last year. And then they only lost to Navy by 4 points there. Not that Navy was that great a team last year, but the point is here, they almost beat Tulsa last year. And they did beat SMU at the end of the year, which is a little bit of an upset because SMU, one of the better teams in the American Athletic Conference. So East Carolina does that. They're able to go in, they're able to surprise, they're able to pull something off that nobody expected them to do. They've done it pretty much every single year. They've gone in, either won a game or been close to winning a game that they shouldn't win. So I think they might end up being 4-8, but I'm going to project sorry. I'm going to project 3-9 here as my projection for East Carolina. Okay, so 1 second. Woo! Like I said, this is the second time I've made this video, so I've been talking for a while, even though I'm only 7 minutes in here. Okay, Houston Cougars are the next team up. They're Athlon Sports projecting 8-4, 5-3. Of course, a disappointing season last year, 3-5, and a disappointing season the year before that, 4-8. Especially for a team like Houston that is used to being one of the top teams in their conference, if not in the group, if not just in the group of 5. Period. So Dan Holgerson, I think a pretty good coach coming in. 4-8, first year, lots of turnover, losing their starting quarterback, having to really kind of reinvent themselves there. I think that was to be expected. 3-5 last year. I think this Houston team is better than that. I think that COVID knocked them for a loop. I think it affected them more than it did some of these other teams. I think they're better than that. Athlon Sports seems to agree. They're projecting 8-4, 5-3. I think they're going to be even a little better than that. I think they're going to be one of the top teams in their conference. Again, finally being able to reinstate themselves. Of course, Clayton Tune coming back, who had a pretty good year last year with over 2,000 yards passing. I think they go 9-3, 5-3 overall. I do think they drop a game to Tulsa and Memphis here, and then potentially lose a game to SMU, even though I think they should win that game. I think they're probably going to drop that one there just because I think they're going to have a game on the schedule where, Dan Holgerson's still trying to insert his brand onto this team. So I think they're probably not going to be as consistent as they should be yet. But I think as far as their non-conference schedule goes, guaranteed wins here against Rice and Gambling State, definitely, and Connecticut, definite wins there. Texas Tech, Athlon Sports has them losing that game. I think that Houston's able to go in. Actually, they have Texas Tech at home. So I think Texas Tech comes in to Houston, which is a difficult stadium to play in anyway. Texas Tech, not a great team in the Big 12. I think they're going to have a little bit of a downward trend, and I think Houston's going to be able to get that win, highly motivated to get that Power 5 win off the bat. So a pretty good season for Houston, 9-3, 5-3, AAC. Memphis Tigers, 8-3 last year and 12-2 the year before that. So a team that's been able to insert themselves. Of course, 2019 went and played in that New Year's Six bowl bid spot over my team, Boise State. Memphis ended up getting that bid. So Memphis here has been able to be a team that's been able to establish themselves one of those top tier teams, even with the loss of their head coach last season. Ryan Silverfield came in, had a really nice year, especially considering that it was COVID and that so many things were going on. I think that shows that he's a great coach to be able to overcome those challenges, especially with the lack of practice. It's really hard for a first-year coach in any situation, but especially when you don't have the practices that you normally would, when the schedule is up in the air, when you have all of this, nothing is for certain, when you have all this doubt and uncertainty around the program, it's really hard to establish yourself. So any coach that's able to come out and do 8-3 in that environment, I mean, they only had a 3-point loss to SMU. They only had a 1-point loss they only had a 3-point loss to SMU, and they only had a 2-possession loss to Tulane, which was really a disappointing loss for them. They shouldn't have lost that game. But, I mean, they were pretty close to having not just an 8-3 record, but a 10-1 record overall. So this was a Memphis team that was really close to being very, very good again. Athlon Sports is projecting 6-6, 3-5, and I think a lot of that has to do with losing their starting quarterback. I think that this is a good enough team. I think that Ryan Silverfield is a good enough coach that they're going to be better than that. I think they're going to be 8-4, 5-3. I do think they'll drop their Power 5 game against Mississippi State, but I think overall they're going to have a pretty good season here. I think they'll drop games against Tulsa, UCF, and potentially against SMU, but other than that, I think they're going to win out and have a pretty good season within the American Athletic Conference. Navy, of course, still having to overcome the loss of Malcolm Perry. That is a continuing big loss for that program. Great quarterback for them, of course, moving on due to graduation a couple years ago. So 11-2 in 2019 when Malcolm Perry was there. The first season without him, they go back to 3-7, which was even a drop-off from Navy standards, who hasn't necessarily been a bottom-of-the-tier team even before Malcolm Perry came along, but really trying to reinsert and find that starting quarterback that they need to go back to that level of high-level competition. Athlon Sports projecting 5-7, 3-5. I think it's going to be another challenging year just until Navy, for me, is a team that they don't have a great defense. They allowed 2 games of 50 points or more last season and a game of 40, as well as a couple of 20s in here, even though they did hold Memphis and Tulsa and Army to less than 20 points at the last 3 games of the season. All losses, but played better down the stretch. They do return 8 players on defense, but this is just not a complete team to me right now. Ken Niamato, I'm totally messing up his name. Ken Niamatololo has been a coach who's shown that he's able to go out there and compete and bring Navy back up to a level of competition that they haven't seen in the past. I just don't think that it's going to happen this year, though. 3-9, 3-5 is my projection overall. I think they drop both games to Army and to Air Force and end up being out of the race for the Commander-in-Chief's trophy this year, though I think that if they are able to find a quarterback and stick with one and build a little bit of development going forward, I think they could be a team that builds their way back into at least being middle of the pack AAC going forward. All right, SMU Mustangs. Heard them. I've talked about them a little bit so far. They had a 7-3 record last year and a 10-3 record the year before that. So last 2 seasons, top of the AAC, been playing pretty well. They were pretty close to having an even better year than that. They dropped a 4-point game to Tulsa. And they their disappointing loss to Cincinnati there and a disappointing loss to East Carolina. But they were almost 8-2 last year, and potentially if they had been coming in a better spot, they would have played a little bit better against East Carolina. I think that loss to Tulsa really deflated the team. But Athlon Sports projecting 7-5, 4-4 overall. I'm going to say a little bit better than that. They do lose their starting quarterback, which I think is going to hurt them. They have one of the best freshman-level running backs, at least, freshman with a dot, which means that he's a redshirt freshman, second-year freshman here, Ulysses S. Bentley, who had over 900 yards rushing. So he's an outstanding talent there. I think they're really going to lean heavy onto him as they try to develop their new starting quarterback. Like I said, Athlon Sports projecting 7-5. I'm going to say 8-4. I think that they can go out and get it done and be one of those competitive upper-level American Athletic Conference teams. Again, I think that they'll win their first 3 games here against Abilene Christian, North Texas, Louisiana Tech before dropping a game to TCU. This is if it was maybe last year, definitely 2019, I think that would be a team that could go out and beat TCU. I just don't think it's going to be this year with the turnover that they have with some of those key starters, with that key quarterback position. But I think that's going to be pretty exciting. After that TCU loss, I think that they're going to go on a pretty nice streak here of 5 wins before they end up jutting up against one of the toughest final 3 games of the season for any team in the Group of 5, and especially in the American Athletic Conference, where they have to play UCF, Cincinnati, and Tulsa in back-to-back-to-back weeks. I think that prior to that game, SMU is only going to have one loss. They're going to be coming in pretty hyped up here, 8-1. I think they're going to drop 3 games in a row to end up 8-4 and have a little bit of a disappointing end of the season, but a good year overall considering that they're breaking in a new starting quarterback and pretty good, and the fact that they play such a tough schedule. All right, Temple Owls. It's a team that has struggled with consistency. They've had some nice surprising wins here in the past, and they've also had a lot of disappointing seasons. Last year was another one of those disappointing seasons, 1-6 overall. Previously, though, 8-5. I think COVID really knocked them for a loop. I don't think that they are a 1-6 team. The Athlon Sports is projecting them to go 3-9, 1-7. I think they're better than that. I think they can go 6-6, 2-6 AAC. I think that they're going to open up with a nice, pretty easy 2 non-conference schedules here against Rutgers and Akron, 2 of the bottom-level teams in each of their conference. Rutgers really not a Power 5 team, just a very low-level Big Ten team there. I think that Temple can go in and get wins against both those teams, and with some momentum coming in against a Boston College team that is vulnerable, I think they can go get that win with Boston College coming to have to go play at Temple. I think that is a way to open up the season there. I think they can go 4-0 in their non-conference schedule before jutting up against Memphis and Cincinnati, which is really going to knock them for a loop here and kind of throw off their season. I think they'll be able to snag a couple of AAC wins against USF and East Carolina, but a really tough schedule with Cincinnati, UCF, Houston, Tulsa, and potentially even a loss here at Navy at the end of the season. I think that they are better than their 6-6 record that I'm projecting, but it's just a really tough schedule to have to play, and I think they end up with that 6-6 versus something better. But it's something that they can definitely keep improving and develop on. If they can just put together a few consistent seasons, they can start really recruiting and getting the level of talent on this team that will help them move forward and be more consistent overall, or be more competitive in the AAC. All right, Tulane Green Wave, projected at 6-6, 4-4 by Athlon Sports. Of course, they went 6-6 last year and 7-6 year before that. They've kind of established themselves as one of those kind of middle, bottom level, but kind of, able to get bowl eligible teams over the last few years. I think that this is going to be going a little bit away from that. A lot of losses on defense. I think this is going to be a much weaker defensive unit for Tulane, which already wasn't a great defensive unit. I think they have a really tough schedule. Games against Oklahoma, Ole Miss, and UAB for their non-conference slate, also an FCS opponent, Morgan State. I think that all 3 of those are going to be losses against Oklahoma, Ole Miss, and UAB. UAB, of course, being a top-tier Conference USA team, which may potentially push for a New Year's Six bowl this year. I think that all 3 of those are going to end up being losses. I think that they can snag a couple of wins on this schedule, especially against Morgan State. They, again, projected 6-6, 4-4 by Athlon. I'm saying 3-9, 2-6. Pretty tough schedule here. I mean, they play UAB, Houston, SMU, Cincinnati, UCF, Memphis, Tulsa, Oklahoma, Ole Miss. I mean, all of these I think are going to be losses. I think they can pull off some wins against Morgan State. East Carolina looks vulnerable, as I've said before, and USF looks to be one of the bottom teams in the conference. I think Tulane can pull off a win there. I think they're better than this 3-9 record that I'm projecting. I really do. I just don't know where the wins are going to come playing against such tough conference and non-conference games. So I think 3-9 is what happens, but I think that they can definitely build on this season and turn it around if they can get some defensive players to show some great starts this year and start to really develop that defense, along with what they've kind of been able to put up in offense in the last season. I mean, they put up 66 points against Ole Miss and had multiple 30-point games. So this is an offense that's definitely on the rise. I think if they can get the defense together and maybe luck out with a little bit of a weaker schedule next year, they might be able to pull off a better season, but just not this year. Tulsa Golden Hurricanes, excellent season last year, 6-3, coming off a disappointing 2019 season where they were 4-8, so definitely on an upward trend. They almost beat Oklahoma State, who was a really good Big 12 team last year, was really close to being in tight competition there for a Big 12 championship. A couple of key losses that ended up hurting them. But they also, after that loss to Oklahoma State, they went undefeated until they played in their conference championship game where they lost to Cincinnati, and then a disappointing 2-point loss, only 2-point loss in Mississippi State. So this is a Tulsa team that's definitely on the rise. I don't think last season was a fluke. I think that Philip Montgomery really has this team back in a position where they can be competitive. Of course, in the past, they've been a team that's been able to be surprising a little bit, like East Carolina or Temple, where they can pull off some surprising wins, but they've put together a little bit of consistency, and I think they're going to be able to go out and do that. They are having to replace their quarterback, which is going to hurt them, but they returned 10 starters on defense and 9 starters on offense, so 19 starters back, a lot of talent returning besides that quarterback position. If they can firm up that quarterback spot, this could be a very competitive Tulsa team. Athlon Sports is projecting 7-5, 5-3. I think they're going to be better than that. I think they're going to be 8-4, 6-2. I think they're going to be one of the top teams in the American Athletic Conference competing for that title spot position. It is a tough conference to play in, so I think they're going to lose out in that hunt, but I think they're going to be much more competitive than Athlon is projecting here. All right, almost done here, last 2 teams, and again, I'm going to get to the end here, and then I'll wrap up and look at how this slots each team into their conference overall, at least that standing, and then where I think that which team I think is going to win that conference championship game. So UCF, of course, Boise State fan, the team I'm most excited about or most interested in, because it's the team that we're going to end up playing this season. UCF 6-4 last year, a disappointing year for them considering the talent that they've had on this team, considering the level of success that UCF has found in the past, 10-3 in 2019. It was really close to being a much better season than that. A pretty close loss here to Tulsa, only an 8-point loss to Tulsa, a 1-point loss to Memphis, and only a 3-point loss to Cincinnati. I mean, they were this close, a few points away from being undefeated on their season. They have the top quarterback, or at least arguably one of the best quarterbacks in the American Athletic Conference and the Group of 5 in Dylan Gabriel, an outstanding quarterback for them. They have Gus Malzahn coming in, so a little bit of a coaching change. I know that Gus Malzahn didn't achieve what was expected of him at Auburn, and really was kind of a little bit of a disappointment there, hence the fact that he is no longer coaching for Auburn. But Gus Malzahn is a coach who can pull out some exciting gimmicks here and there. As a coach who can put together a consistent team. SEC is just really hard to play in. He's a coach who does a great job of coaching up his special teams for sure, and I think he develops quarterbacks well. I liked what he did with Bo Nix, and I really think that UCF is going to continue to achieve at that high level with a high caliber coach, Gus Malzahn, who I think is a top-tier Group of 5 coach and definitely a coach ready to go back into the Power 5 once he's had a few rehab years here at UCF. So I'm excited to see what Gus Malzahn can do here with UCF. That it's all going to come down to that first Boise State game. Now, Athlon Sports is projecting a 9-4, 6-2 overall record. I think it looks like Athlon Sports is actually projecting a loss here to Boise State. In their non-conference schedule, UCF has playing Boise State, Bethany Cookman, UCF FCS team, Louisville, and Connecticut. Obviously, Connecticut and Bethany Cook are going to be wins for this team. So it's going to be interesting to see what can happen. Actually, it looks like Athlon Sports is projecting winning against Boise State. We're going to have to see what happens. If UCF can get by Boise State with a win, I think that they have a shot at going undefeated with a decently easy, actually one of the easier schedules in the American Athletic Conference. They do have to play Cincinnati, which is going to be tough, but they don't have to play Houston, and they don't have to play Tulsa. So that's both out of the way. If they can get past Cincinnati and Memphis, this is going to be a very good team, especially if they can beat Boise State. Boise State, I think, is going to be a much better team than they were last year. I think they're going to be much closer to that 2019 level. Of course, new head coach Andy Avalos coming in. It's all going to come down to his coaching style and seeing what he can assert. But Boise State, I think, is going to be a pretty good team, especially I think they're going to be returning to that 2019 level. If UCF can prove that they are caliber of beating Boise State, I think they have a chance here of going undefeated. Now, I think that Boise State is going to get the win there. Boise State does really well, or has done really well in Florida in the past, and in home openings, especially if they went in and beat Florida State a few years back. I know not an equal comparison, UCF better than that, but I think Boise State's going to be a slightly better team here. They're going to be very motivated. I think Boise State can come in and get the win there, but then after that, I think that UCF is going to win pretty much every other game. That Cincinnati game is the only one that I have questions about. I am projecting 10-2, 7-1 overall. I do think that Cincinnati will get that win just because they have an established coaching staff, they have established players on their team, and they're not having to deal with any kind of new philosophies. I think if this was a UCF team going in through next year, assuming that Dylan Gabriel sticks around with Gus Malzahn with a full season under his belt, I think they'll go in and win that game. This year, however, I just don't think it's going to happen. I think that Cincinnati ends up pulling out the win there, but UCF, I think, is going to be one of those top teams in the group of 5 competing for a New Year's Six Bowl. I'm really excited that Boise State gets to play them because they're going to be one of the main rivals for that New Year's Six Bowl bid. And so if Boise State can get a win here, it'll be good to knock them back, or at least have that comparison. If Boise State ends up losing this game, it's going to be a very different season, I think, than I projected for Boise State overall. But I'm excited. I'm actually going to be able to make that game, so I'm pumped to finally be able to go watch this matchup. Going to be absolutely the top Group of 5 versus Group of 5 matchup in the country, if not one of the top matchups to look for an opening game weekend. So I'm excited to see it. I'm very excited to see what happens to UCF overall. And once they get past that Boise State game, I will be their biggest fan, rooting them on the rest of the way. Because whether they win or lose against Boise State, the better they play, the better Boise State looks. So good luck, Knights, and hope that it's a great season for you here. All right, USF Bulls. Now, we talked about a great team in the American Athletic Conference that happens to be in Florida. Let's talk about a really bad team that's in Florida. USF, not one of those high-level teams like they have been in the past. They went 1-8 last year and 4-8 the year before that. Athlon Sports projecting 4-8, 3-5. They're having to replace their quarterback, which already doesn't help. Jeff Scott, new head coach. Again, like I said, COVID, hard time to insert your offensive, your coaching style into a team. So they may be better than 1-8 record. I just haven't seen any proof of it in the past here with USF. I think it's going to be a very disappointing season for them again. 1-11, 0-8 overall is what I'm projecting. I think they'll snag a win here against Florida A&M, that FCS school. But then they have a very tough non-conference schedule. I mean, they play NC State, Florida, and BYU. I think all those are guaranteed losses. They'd be hard matchups for any Group of 5 team. And then they play the rest of the schedule all the way through here. I think they're going to probably take L's on the rest of them. They may pull off a surprising win here or there. I mean, East Carolina and Navy are certainly... Sorry, they don't play Navy. East Carolina and Tulane are certainly vulnerable, but I think that this ends up being another disappointing season for USF overall. All right, so just how does this wrap up? Well, Athlon Sports is projecting that the overall order of finish for the American Athletic Conference goes Cincinnati, UCF, Houston, Tulsa, SMU, Tulane, Memphis, East Carolina, Navy, USF, and Temple. I'm projecting something a little bit different, though I am agreeing on the top 2 finishers. I do believe it's going to be Cincinnati and UCF at that 1 and 2 slot, but then I think Tulsa is going to take the number 3, SMU is going to take the number 4, Memphis is going to take the number 5, Houston is going to take the number 6, Navy going to take the number 7. I am going to mention, though, that after you get past Memphis, it's pretty much just an all-out, once you get past Houston, it's pretty much a 4-way tie for worst team in the conference. So Navy at number 7, Tulane at number 8, Temple at number 9, East Carolina at number 10, and USF here at number 11. Just very disappointing season, I think, for all those teams being kind of bottom tier here, but I'm expecting good things out of Cincinnati, UCF, Tulsa, SMU, Memphis, and even Houston. I think they're going to definitely be top tier in their conference this year. So Athlon Sports projecting Cincinnati winning over UCF in the American Athletic Conference Championship. I think I'm probably going to agree on that note on odds overall. I think that Cincinnati probably going to get that win again, that rematch game. I think they're going to probably get that win against UCF. However, with UCF taking a loss in the regular season, as I'm projecting, once they get to that game, they're going to have the film. They're going to be highly motivated. I think they have a high chance to come in here and win that game. I'm going to be rooting for them to do so. I think they can win it. I think they have the talent to win it. But I do think that Cincinnati, just with their overall track record over the last few years, I think they're the ones that's going to snag it if I'm looking at purely based on odds. But I think that UCF has of any team in the conference has the best shot of beating Cincinnati in both the regular season and especially in the conference championship game. That will be one of the top conference championship games to watch, and it could even end up determining the New Year's Six winner or the New Year's Six representative like the American Athletic Conference has done in the past. So it's going to be very exciting. Again, going to be one of the top group of 5 conferences. As always, of course, their moniker is that they're part of the Power 6. I have a little bit of a disagreement there, but I do think they're one of the top group of 5 conferences. I'm excited to see what happens here with the American Athletic Conference. Make sure that you like and subscribe. It's not just Boise State stuff. I do regular college football group FBS across group of 5, Power 5. I discuss them all, though I do like to lean more heavily to the group of 5 because I think that they get passed over unfairly by a lot of bias. But I'm excited to see for this season. I'm going to be trying to do weekly videos where I talk about top group of 5 matchups or top college football matchups, period. I'm going to try and do some videos. We'll see how the schedule works out, but I'm going to try and do some videos talking about that New Year's 6 race. And I do have another video coming out where I'm going to be talking about that race for the New Year's 6 among the group of 5 teams and seeing which one has the best chance to get that slot and which team I think is going to win that slot in the end. So thank you for watching my video. Like I said, make sure you like and subscribe, and as always, go Big Blue.